Welcome to our channel. Today I have a guest named Hannah. She's here to share a story that honestly shocked even our whole team. Imagine this: a marriage, a family, trust, and one choice that shattered it all. This isn't just a story about betrayal. It's a story about forbidden feelings, inner conflict, and the price we pay for a single moment of weakness. Are you ready to hear her confession? Let's begin.
Secrets of Alex's friends.
Hi everyone, my name is Hannah. I'm not proud to be sitting here telling you this story. In fact, even saying the words out loud makes me feel sick with shame. But sometimes the only way to really understand yourself is to face what you've done, no matter how awful it is. I've been married to my husband Ethan for almost 7 years. We met in college. He was that tall, calm, funny guy that everyone liked. He made me feel safe. We built a life together, a house in the suburbs, stable jobs, Sunday dinners with his family, the kind of life you grow up thinking is the dream, and for a long time it was. But here's where everything started to twist. Ethan's father, Robert, moved in with us temporarily after his wife, Ethan's mom, passed away. He was devastated. The man looked broken, lost, like the light had gone out in him. Ethan and I both agreed he shouldn't be alone, so we offered our guest room. It felt like the right thing to do. Family helps family, right? At first, it was all perfectly normal. He'd cook breakfast for us sometimes, help fix things around the house, play with our dog. I saw him as a father figure, nothing else. But grief does strange things to people, and maybe loneliness does too. I still remember the first time something felt off. I had just gotten home from work, and Robert was in the kitchen making dinner. He looked up, smiled, and said, "You work too hard, Hannah. Ethan's lucky to have you." It was a normal compliment, but the way he said it, the softness in his eyes, made my heart skip for just a second. I brushed it off. I told myself I was imagining it, but after that, there were more little moments. He'd linger in the living room when I watched TV alone. He'd tell stories from his younger days, laughing in that deep voice that filled the room. Once, when I was washing dishes, he came up behind me to grab a glass and his hand brushed mine. It was nothing, but it felt like something. I hated that my body reacted. I told myself it was just empathy, that I was feeling sorry for him, that I just wanted him to feel less lonely. But then Ethan started working longer hours, traveling for business, leaving me home with his dad more often than not. One evening, Ethan called to say he'd be staying overnight out of town. I remember pouring Robert and myself a glass of wine, trying to lighten the mood. We sat in the kitchen, talking about life, about loss, about love, and then there was this silence. A silence so heavy I could feel it vibrating between us. He reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. It was such a small, gentle gesture, but it felt like a line being crossed, a door opening that should have stayed shut. I froze. I should have stopped him. I should have walked away, but instead I just sat there, feeling the warmth of his hand linger on my skin. After that night, I avoided him. For days I kept my distance, but avoidance turned into tension. A kind of invisible current that pulled us together every time we were in the same room. I could feel his eyes on me, and the worst part, I didn't hate it. It was wrong. God, it was so wrong. But temptation has a way of whispering instead of shouting. The breaking point came one rainy Friday night. Ethan was gone again on a business trip. I was sitting in the living room, watching the storm through the window. Robert walked in, sat down beside me and said, "You shouldn't be alone like this. You deserve someone who sees you." I laughed it off, but my voice was shaking. Then he touched my hand, slowly, deliberately. Our eyes met, and in that instant, something in me broke. I wish I could say I pulled away. I wish I could tell you I stopped what happened next. But I didn't. I let it happen, and that's how it started. The affair that would destroy my marriage, my self-respect, and every sense of who I thought I was. When I woke up the next morning and saw him in my bed, Ethan's father, I felt a guilt so heavy it made it hard to breathe. But the worst part, it wasn't just guilt. There was also longing. And that's when I realized I was in far deeper trouble than I could ever imagine. The morning after it happened, I woke up before him. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that feels like a scream you can't hear. I turned over and saw Robert lying there, his arm draped across the sheets like nothing about the world had changed. But for me, everything had. My heart was pounding, my mouth was dry. Every nerve in my body was screaming, "What did you just do?" I slipped out of bed, trying not to wake him, and went straight to the shower. I remember scrubbing my skin until it burned, like I could wash away what had happened. But water doesn't rinse off guilt, it just makes it sink deeper. When I finally looked in the mirror, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her eyes looked hollow, wild, like she'd just watched her own life catch fire. When I walked out, Robert was in the kitchen making coffee. He looked calm, almost peaceful. "Morning," he said softly, like we were sharing something beautiful instead of something horrific. I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But all I managed to say was, "We can't ever talk about this. It can't happen again." He nodded, but the way he looked at me told me he didn't believe that, not for a second. That entire day felt like a bad dream. I couldn't focus on work. My hands shook when I typed. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, terrified it was Ethan. When he finally called that night, I almost couldn't pick up. But I did. He sounded tired, but happy. "Hey, babe," he said. "How's Dad doing? You holding up okay?" I remember staring at Robert through the kitchen doorway while Ethan's voice filled my ear. Robert smiled at me, a soft, knowing smile that made my stomach twist. "He's fine," I said, my voice barely holding steady. "We're both fine." After I hung up, I went upstairs and cried quietly into a pillow, not just from guilt, but from confusion. Because as disgusting as it sounds, part of me missed what happened. I missed the attention, the intensity, the way Robert looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Ethan hadn't looked at me like that in years. That realization made me hate myself even more. Days passed and we pretended nothing had happened, but pretending only works until the silence between two people turns into gravity, and gravity always pulls. It started with small things again. A brush of the hand when we passed in the hallway, a look that lasted too long, a text late at night, "Can't sleep, thinking about you." I didn't reply, but I also didn't block him. And then one night, Ethan came home early from a business trip. I was in the kitchen cleaning up when I heard his car door slam outside. A brush of the hand when we passed in the hallway, a look that lasted too long, a text late at night, "Can't sleep, thinking about you." I didn't reply, but I also didn't block. When Ethan walked in, Robert greeted him first, like always. "Hey, son," he said, with that same calm tone that suddenly felt like a mask. They hugged. I stood there, feeling like an intruder in my own house, my stomach churning. That night, Ethan kissed me goodnight. A long, warm kiss that should have felt comforting, but instead it made me feel trapped, because I knew I was lying with a man who still trusted me completely, while the weight of what I'd done pressed on my chest like a stone. A few days later, I told Robert he needed to move out. "It's time," I said. "You've had time to grieve. You need your own space." He looked at me quietly for a moment, then said, "You're not doing this for me, Hannah. You're doing it for you." He was right. When he finally left, I thought I'd feel relief. Instead, I felt a hollow ache I couldn't explain. The house felt empty in a different way, not peaceful, but restless. Ethan noticed. "You okay?" he asked one night as we sat in bed. "You've been distant lately," I lied. "Just work stress." But he didn't believe me. I could see it in his eyes, the beginning of doubt, and that was when the fear really set in. Not just fear of what I'd done, but fear of what would happen when, not if Ethan found out, because secrets like that don't stay buried forever. And deep down, I think part of me wanted to be caught, maybe because I couldn't live with myself any longer. Or maybe because some part of me still craved punishment, the kind that could finally make me feel something other than guilt. It happened on a Sunday, the kind of day that feels almost too perfect. Sunlight streaming through the curtains, the smell of pancakes, the sound of Ethan humming in the kitchen. If you had walked in that morning, you'd think we were the picture of a happy family. But perfect days have a way of turning into nightmares when you least expect it. Ethan's dad, Robert, had come over for brunch. It had been a few weeks since he moved out, and I'd done everything I could to bury what happened, to bury us. I thought if I just smiled enough, cooked enough, acted enough, maybe it would all fade away. It didn't. He arrived with a bottle of wine and that same quiet, confident smile that once made my heart race. I avoided his eyes as I set the table. Ethan was chatting, laughing, completely oblivious. And then it happened. Ethan went upstairs to grab something from his office. The second he left the room, Robert leaned close and whispered, "You look beautiful today." My breath caught in my throat. I didn't even look at him. I just whispered back, "Stop, please." But he didn't. "You've been avoiding me," he said, his voice low. "You can pretend all you want, Hannah, but you can't erase what we had." My hands were shaking. We had nothing, It was a mistake. And then silence. Except it wasn't silence, and because right behind me I heard Ethan's voice, cold, disbelieving. "What did you just say?" My heart stopped. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, holding the photo frame he'd gone upstairs to grab. His face had gone pale, his jaw tight, his eyes wild with something I'd never seen before. Pure betrayal. "Ethan," I whispered, "please, it's not—" But he cut me off. "Don't. Just don't." He looked between me and his father, realization spreading across his face like poison. "Tell me this isn't what I think it is." Robert opened his mouth, but I spoke first. "It was one time. It was a mistake, I swear." Ethan's laugh was hollow. "One time? You think that makes it better?" He slammed the photo frame down on the table, the one of us on our wedding day. The glass shattered. I jumped, tears spilling down my face. "You slept with my father," he said, his voice breaking. "My father, Hannah." "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Robert tried to speak, but Ethan shouted, "Shut up!" The sound of it echoed through the house like thunder. I reached for him, but he stepped back. "Don't touch me." And in that moment I knew I'd lost him, not just as a husband, but as a person who once believed I was good. He left that day, packed a bag and walked out. No yelling, no second chances, just silence. Robert tried to call me after, but I never answered. I blocked his number. I wanted to erase him, erase that version of myself that did what I did. The days that followed were a blur. I barely ate, barely slept. Every sound in the house reminded me of Ethan, the squeak in the floorboards, the smell of his cologne on the pillow, even the stupid coffee mug he always used. Weeks later, he filed for divorce. I didn't fight it. I didn't have the right to. Sometimes people ask me why I did it. And the truth is, I don't really know. Maybe I was lonely. Maybe I was desperate to feel wanted again. Or maybe I was just broken in a way I didn't understand until it was too late. All I know is that in one moment, one stupid, reckless moment, I destroyed everything that ever mattered to me. Now, when I see families at the park, couples holding hands, fathers and sons laughing together, I feel this ache that doesn't go away, because I didn't just betray Ethan. I broke something sacred between them. And that's the kind of sin you don't come back from. So if you're listening to this and you think the grass might be greener somewhere else, trust me, it's not. It's burned. And once you cross that line, you'll spend the rest of your life standing in the ashes. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Wow, that was a tough one to hear. What Hannah shared today isn't just a story about cheating. It's a story about guilt, regret, and the irreversible damage one decision can cause. But let's talk about it. Do you think her husband should have given her another chance? Or was walking away the only right thing to do? And what about his father? Do you think he's equally to blame? Or does the responsibility fall more on Hannah? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop them down in the comments below. If this story made you feel something, anger, sadness, or even empathy, hit that like button and subscribe to support the channel. It really helps us keep sharing more real, raw confessions like this one. Thanks for watching. Stay curious, stay kind, and remember, sometimes the truth hurts, but it's always worth hearing. See you in the next story.
Secrets of Alex's Friends.